And in the same week, there is more fallout over TV personalities Joy Reid and Samantha Bee. Both have issued apologies for controversial comments and have received shows of support from their respective networks. The seeming lack of punishment has irked many Americans, including President Trump, who showed support for Roseanne Barr following her show's cancellation. Here to weigh in, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania radio host R.J. Harris, 580 on your dial as you drive through Pennsylvania. And for the rest of us on the World Wide Web, nice to see you, R.J., as always. There is, of course, a distinction you can make about what each one of these women did or said this week, whether it's Joy Reid with her former blog post from 10 years ago, it's Samantha Bee who used the C word to describe the president's daughter, whatever it is. There are distinctions, but is there really a difference in what they did or only a difference in how they're being treated by their networks?
No, that really is. There is a double standard. In fact, America is a minefield of double standards right now. In every walk of life, in every section of life, you name it, sex, drugs, rock and roll, politics, there are double standards everywhere. You take the N-word. I think that's one of the best examples where it's a horrible word. Nobody should use it, but if you're African American, you can get away with it. And if you're sanctioned by an African American, you may be able to get away with it, but nobody should be using the word. It's a horrible word. So there are double standards everywhere, and it's a very confusing time for many.
Confusing time for many. I would assume also a confusing time for someone such as yourself. What can you say? Because as you point out, if one person says something, it might be okay. If you say it as an older white male who's a conservative radio host, you're going to be strung up from the light posts.
Well, I know this sounds kind of hokey, but my mother brought me up to pretty much respect everyone, so I have a lot of common sense, and I know what will fly and won't fly. Now, I will tell you this, being here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, I'm very fortunate because I do say and get away with things on the air that if I was doing this nationally, I'd just be, run out of town on a rail.
Well, Joy Reid is not being run out of town, at least so far, by her network. This is what MSNBC has said about her blog posts. Some of the things written by Joy on her old blog are obviously hateful and hurtful. Joy has apologized publicly and privately and has said she has grown and evolved in many years since, and we know this to be true. Is there value in that, RJ, for networks not to fire people and to allow, if someone apologizes or restates something, to have a second crack at it?
Well, I do think it depends on what you're hiring them to do. And are they saying it personally in their own, areas like Facebook and Twitter and all that, or are they doing it on the job? And if they're doing it on the job, is that what you hired them to do? Did you hire them to be controversial? Did you hire them, to get down that path? If you did, I think you owe it to them to support them. That's what you hired them to do.
Is there a danger in the thought police world that if you say something that outrages either a conservative group or a liberal group, that somehow you can be fired? Is that how we sort of go down the slippery slope of political correctness in the first place?
Without question. I work in an environment where I never have to look over my shoulder and wonder whether or not I should say this or should I go down that path. My management supports me A to Z, but they also know that I'm responsible and that I'm not going to float the license out the door. And, that's really important that I have that because that way I go on and I do my job and I perform in I'm at my best.
Forgive me for 1 second on this. You said something important. You float the license out the door. You're on the airwaves. The FCC says there's some things you can say and some things you can't. But on Twitter,
that's correct.
It's the Wild West. And on cable, in a way, it's the Wild West, too, as Samantha Bee proved, at least to an extent. Is there a time and place where saying one thing is okay and another thing shouldn't be?
From my perspective, no. Look, the way I handle Twitter, Facebook, and everything I do is if I'm going to do it off the air, it's going to be the same as on the air. I'm going to stick to the same rules. But that's the way I run my life. Nobody's ever had to teach me in classes about sexual harassment or any of that. I was brought up to respect everybody. And I know that sounds hokey, but I wish we could get back to more of that.
Well, I guess you could say R.J. Harris the same, whether online, on Twitter, at R.J. Harris, whether we hear you on the radio or, as I can attest to from meeting you in person, the same in person. Your mother did a good job, R.J. Thank you.